start the broadcast. Okay, welcome everybody. I can see we already have 9 attendees. Welcome Anne, welcome Anna Margaret, welcome Aviera, welcome Jenny, Joy, Manish, Samson, welcome Wangari. Yeah, we're happy to have you today in our TechPalate Insights webinar. This is our very first webinar for the year, and we hope to be doing more of this moving forward. My name is Catherine Odhiambo, and I'm the founder of TechPalate Insights. With me today, we have two amazing gentlemen. But even before they introduce themselves, maybe I'll request my attendees now to send us your locations, where are you joining us from, your name, yeah, and maybe which innovations you're most excited to see in this new year. Let's see us chatting in the chat section. I hope all of you can hear us. Yeah, so just drop in where you're joining us from. Yeah, which innovations excite you most? Yeah, before now we proceed. Are you able to hear me?
We are.
Okay, at least I know they're now hearing me. I've received a chat from Jenny. Yes. Hello, Jenny is joining us from Oslo. Who else? Who else is going fast? I'm joining you from Kenya. Prasant is joining us from Canada. Yes, Jay is joining us from the Netherlands. Thank you. Who else? Who else wants to tell us where they're joining us from? Thank you. Thank you, Anne. Anne is joining us from Germany, Bremen. Samson, where are you joining us from? Hello. Sebastian is joining us from Chile. Samson is joining us from Kenya. Wow, amazing. Amazing to have all of you here. Who else? Who else wants to tell us where they're joining us from? All right. As we wait for them to drop their locations, maybe now we can go to the introductions. Prasant, kindly introduce yourself, which organization you work with, and then Edward will follow.
Thanks, Catherine. My name is Prasant. I'm the founder and CEO of Smart Food Safe. So Smart Food Safe is a quality and food safety compliance management software. And we built affordable, customizable, scalable, user-friendly, and future-ready quality and food safety management software. I come from a background of quality and food safety. I did work all my life across 7 countries in the quality and food safety domain. And one question I always ask myself when I was working in the industry, we are living in a world of technology. So that means everybody has a smartphone, everybody has a smart gadget. But if you go back to the food industry, if you go back and see how the data or how the quality and food safety is managed in a global food safety, it's still based on paper or standalone Excel or standalone software. I was fortunate to travel more than 40 countries for work around the globe. And no matter which country I go, I always find the same problem when it comes to quality and food safety management. So then I thought, hey, if there's a smart way to do everything, why not with your quality and food safety management? With that thought, we started Smart Food Safe in 2017 with the whole vision of how to make food safety smarter, how to make the food safety program management tech ready and more efficient as we emerge with the new technologies. So that's all my background. A food safety professional, food safety goes in my blood, and with the technology changes in the world, we are trying to marry the core food safety component in a technological platform.
Thank you, Prasant. What an amazing background. Edward, You can tell us who you are, yeah, and everything about you.
Yeah, so my name is Edward Sliwinski. I work at EFOST in Wageningen in the Netherlands. And EFOST is the European Federation for Food Science and Technology. We are a young and dynamic team. And when I retire in a few years, the team will be even younger. I don't know if they will be more dynamic without me, but we'll see. EFOS organizes an annual conference every year for food science and technologists. But for this webinar, it's really important that we are participating in Horizon Europe projects, research and innovation projects. And there are two that I would like to tell a little bit about. So if you can put my slides on, then I can quickly explain why they are so relevant for this webinar.
Okay, let me just do that.
And my personal background is that I did a PhD in Wageningen in food physics. And then I worked mainly for the industry in Nutricia, in Danone, in Arla Foods in Denmark, and for Yili, that is the Chinese dairy company. So the first project I want to mention is Titan, and Titan is about enabling transparency in the food supply chain via implementation of digital technologies to boost health, sustainability, and safety of products, processes, and diets. And as you can see from this title, it is quite a broad project, and food safety is part of it. What are you could say the main expected outcomes, and you could translate this as what are our ambitions. We have 23 pilots in the Titan project, where we have asked SMEs to come up with their ideas or their needs, or if they have ideas to develop a new business offer or to improve their let's say their way of working. The pilots are mainly about new digital technologies, but we also have some, and those are also more in food safety, that are with a DNA-based detection methods. There will be strategic management recommendations for the digital startups and the SMEs in the food sector from the Titan project. We will describe the state of play. When you look at cross-cutting challenges like connectivity, privacy, interoperability, consumer acceptance, there will be recommendations for policymakers to improve the regulatory aspects. And what is really important, we will develop a network of expertise that can act as an EU hub for knowledge sharing. The goal is to have more than 200 experts in our network that can help us to address all the questions that we are getting. Yes. Maybe you can move to the next slide.
Thank you.
Can you move to the next slide? I'll do it really quickly.
Okay, so move to the next slide.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, so when you look at Titan, there are 4 topics that are key for us. We call them the key expertise areas. The one is informed food choices by consumers. One is to build sustainable supply chains. Another one is to implement innovative technologies. And one is to follow the food system approach. And when you look at let's say, to help consumers to make informed food choices, you can see that food, fraud, and authenticity and food safety are part of this one. But for many of the pilots, the implementation of new technologies is also really relevant. Yes, if you can move on. And what do we want to deliver? We want to improve access to relevant data, to reduce food safety issues. We would like to contribute to vulnerable workers getting a higher income, and also vulnerable children to get improved nutritional intake. Better dealing with valuable resources like water, for instance, in food production, more economic value for carbon storage, reduction of food loss and waste, reduction of food fraud cases, and more trust between food producers and buyers. And when you want to know more about the Titan project, you can go to our website. We're really active on LinkedIn, and please, when you you can consider to become let's say, a member of our network of expertise. Then to the next slide. There's a second project that was started a bit more than a year ago. It's called Catalyze. And Catalyze is about, let's say, catalyzing scientific innovation in food safety action. And I will give a very short introduction about that project. Yes, please to the next one. So the main fact, we have let me see, 17 partners from different parts of Europe. The Ukraine is also part of the Catalyze project, and we represent the entire food system. We have actors from all essential, let's say, players, like research, industry, regulatory bodies, NGOs. Yes. Yes. The ambition is to accelerate the uptake of knowledge and innovative solutions. So this links with my colleague said, the digitalization, for instance, is an important aspect. It's going slow, so we want to promote that this goes faster, and this is why we try to identify a number of SME startups that have promising innovations to bring. And we want to give them the floor and bring them into contact with end users and their potential customers. Yes. The working model that we have in the Catalyze is that we want to collect information, we want to translate it, and with that translated knowledge, we want to educate the general public and experts in the field, but also we want to facilitate that the innovators and the end users meet each other so that the uptake process goes more efficient. Yes. So here you see what are the expected results. We have quite some things that we are working on. For instance, in June, the community of practice will go live, where you can become a member of this community of practice. And then the end game is to have an improved uptake of new innovations in the food safety field. That's it from my side. You can now stop the presentation.
Okay. On to our poll. So we've just launched a poll on which emerging technology do you believe will have the biggest impact on food safety and quality in 2025? And our most voted innovation is artificial intelligence, that is AI and machine learning. Our second is Internet of Things. Yes. And then that is at 62% have voted for artificial intelligence, and then IoT takes 25%. Blockchain is at 12%. Automation and advanced food testing has gotten 0 votes. Interesting. And now that takes us to our very first question to our panelists. So according to you two, which technology do you believe will have the biggest impact this year? Prasant, maybe you can go first.
Okay, so Catherine, so from my experience, specific to food industry, unless we digitalize what we do, we would not be able to implement any technology like AI or ML. So in my perspective, IoT would be the number one point, because we need to first collect the data in a digital, transparent, and real-time way. So IoT, such as having a handheld device connected to the internet so that you can do a data collection by mobile phone or a tablet, or having sensors such as temperature, thermometer for temperature, or pH, or humidity, or any other real-time sensors which can give you real-time feedback about the quality or food safety parameters. So once you have got the IoT or digital platform in place to collect the data, then we can talk about AI or ML. So how to process those data, how to use some human intelligence to predict the output from those data. So AI or ML will come to next. So that is what my opinion in terms of the future of technology. Of course, there are a lot more than this in the food safety domain. For example, let's say rapid detections. So currently, in the food safety platform, if you look at there are quality control and quality assurance. As part of the quality control, you need to detect abnormality in the whole supply chain. And some of the traditional microbial detection takes days. So that means the product has already been made before you could make a decision. So if you can have a rapid detection technology which can give you rapid feedback about the hazards or about any abnormality in the supply chain, that is going to definitely take precedence in the next few years. And apart from that, of course, we have got nanotechnology, we have got what you call the genomics, we have got also blockchain. So other technology come in place down the line, but to summarize, we need to digitalize, you collect the data, process the data, and use predictive analysis.
Thank you. Thank you. So IoT will enable us now to implement things in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and even blockchain. That is according to Prasant. So Edward, what are your views?
Yes, thank you very much, Prasanti, for your answer. Maybe Catherine, you can show the presentation again. I'll try to do it really quickly, and you can go to page 12. To react on what Prasanti said, we see when we look at this in the Catalyze project, we see a number of developments, and one of this is new analytical methods, and you already mentioned this rapid detection method, where you can measure on site. It's also really important for food fraud. And the one, let's say, hero that I have on this page is Unisensor. That's a company based in Belgium. They work with laminar flow tests, and they have, for instance, developed a test where you can measure antibiotics in milk, antimicrobials, and they won an award for this innovation from the IDF last year. Next slide.
Oops, sorry.
The second group I see are the mild sterilization methods. Of course, HPP and PEF are being used already. Sonos team is present there. But the hero for me on this page is Liras. That is a Danish startup. And they work with the process they call rustalization. And it is a combination of heat and UV light, but it saves energy. There are modern technologies, but like cold plasma, it's further away from the market. This is something that will happen in the future. Yes, next one. There are some really nice developments in hygiene and cleaning. For instance, to use robotics to inspect containers or tanks or even spray dryers, because it's the cleaning of spray dryers is already really difficult, but to enter it as a human makes it even more difficult. So when you can use small robots, makes a big difference. But my hero here is WattAir. This is a Swiss startup that has designed a cleaning procedure where they pre-treat the water with membrane cell electrolysis. So they have a pH neutral, let's say, water phase that doesn't contain a compound that, let's say, that has a bad image. So they can use it in all situations. And for instance, it is being used by doctors that need to sterilize their own hands. They wash it in that water. And it is also used to wash the water for fresh cut vegetables. Yes, next slide. Then we come to artificial intelligence for foresight. There are several initiatives in this way. We know that the FAO, they have their own foresight tool. My hero here is Food Archive from Agono. That's a Greek startup. And they, let's say, they collect information, they treat it, they analyze it with AI, and they give predictions to the customer of what might happen in the future. And there are some more of these. Next one. Then the topic that was mentioned by Prasanti, digitalization, we see that as a really important development. And I have two heroes here. One is Q Assurance. I think that this can be best compared with what Prasanti described of his company. This is a Dutch startup. It is initiated by someone that his father had a laboratory for food safety tests, and he studied in Eindhoven Technical University. So he combines the digital knowledge with the food safety knowledge. He has developed a really nice platform. He also gives trainings in Africa, I think in Ghana, for what I've seen. So maybe it's something to look at. And the other hero is Bulk Vision. Maybe you can go to the next page. Bulk Vision is developed by Enfit, and that's an organization that is focusing on what happens during transport, because this is an aspect that is sometimes forgotten. When food goes into a truck, it needs to be transported. The truck needs to be clean, and they have developed Bulk Vision, which is based on blockchain, to have security in logistic processes. And then on the next slide, sensors, that was mentioned by you. I know from one of the posts that Catherine mentioned Black Bear. That's why I choose Keep It. That's a Norwegian startup. And they have a sensor to measure the temperature history of, for instance, salmon. And then it can give recommendations for the remaining shelf life. And so there's now agreement with the Dutch government that they can have a sandbox, so they can do a trial which is not in line with regulation, but they can do the trial anyways to test their product to see if they can make any good contributions. And then on the last page, I have some natural solutions. Lactic acid bacteria, they can produce antimicrobials, they can extend the shelf life of products like yogurt. And there are two startups, Savegi and Bio2Coat, that have developed a plant-based coating that you can put on fresh produce so that they have a longer shelf life. It relates more to spoilage than to food safety, but we thought this is relevant. This is what I had on my presentation. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you, Edward. So since you've already shared your presentation, Prasant has also talked, maybe now you can tell us, out of all these innovations, which specific one is your organization using? And also Prasant can also tell us a bit about Smart Food Safe. Yeah.
Which ones we are using?
Yes.
Yeah. So
is there a specific one that you're biased to? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I already tried to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, we see several developments. But what I do is I write proposals for new European research projects, and I try to involve those companies and those partners that I think bring the most impact. So yeah, some of these partners are already involved in the projects we run, like the Titan project, or we have a connection with them for the Catalyze project, and that means that we will organize events where we give them the floor to pitch and to come into contact with larger food processing companies.
Thank you, Edward. So Prasant, can you tell us of a specific technology your company is developing or is currently also using?
Yeah. So Catherine, as I mentioned that we are trying to provide a platform where we can digitalize every aspect of the supply chain, right? We have got 18 plus modules. We are building a modular solution, which is very affordable, and customer can choose to have only that module as they want. So by providing a modular solution, we are helping every segment of the food supply chain to digitalize. So once you have a digital platform, now let's talk about AI. So what we are working on, one of the area we see a biggest struggle by most of the food supply chain is called the supplier compliance, right? So part of the supplier compliance, what we do, we request a supplier a bunch of documents. Somebody has to look at those documents, review, and make sure they're compliant. So we are integrating AI over there. So now let's say the supplier has provided you a bunch of documents. They are certificates. Can I populate the expiry date automatically from the certificate? So in this way, I don't have to manually enter the certificate. Can I, let's say if I'm getting a certificate of analysis from the supplier, how do I know it's meeting my spec? So somebody has to verify the spec and the COS side by side and to make sure they're compliant. So what we are doing, we are automating that process, that a specification and a COA can be automatically matched by using AI technology and demonstrate if this lot is compliant or not compliant. So we are providing then horizon scanning. As Edward was mentioning, Food Ekai is using what I call a horizon scanning of the various hazards around the world, and then integrating a predictive model. So say what could be your next food safety risk. So we are working on a similar platform to integrate with our supplier compliance management, where the horizon scan can alert if a supplier had a recall and which are your approved supplier, and then predict you, hey, now it's time for you to go and reevaluate the supplier, because the industry the supplier is coming from, or the commodity the supplier is supplying to you, or the country the suppliers are coming from, or this particular supplier had a food safety incidents. So we are one of the area called supplier compliances. The second area, as a quality and food safety manager, we all have this bunch of paperwork to do when we have a non-compliance. The non-compliance could be from a customer complaint or from internal deviations. So whenever you have a non-compliance, the typical kappa route, you go and identify the root or what you call incident, source, root cause analysis, corrective action, preventive action. The whole process of investigating an incident is very time consuming. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to build a model where you could automate your investigation, and the AI can automatically suggest you, okay, I looked at my receiving record, everything looks good. I looked at my cleaning record, everything looks good. I looked at my production record, looks like there is a slight deviation from the target. I looked at my shipping record, the temperature was out of control. So by providing an automated investigation tool through artificial intelligence, we'll be able to predict where the problem could have come from, and then suggest automated corrective and preventive actions. So that is the second area we are trying to work on in our Smart Food Safe. And the third area we are trying to work on called the predictive analysis. So once you have got all the data, historical data in place, so let's say I have a CCP failure from the temperature or in my pasteurization, and what are the conditions which caused my failure? Let's say my flow rate in the pasteurizer was this much, my temperature was this much, my heat rate was this much. So if I can create a model where we can predict what parameter correlate to a CCP failure, so as and when that parameter slightly go out of deviation, we can send a predictive analysis, guys, hey, looks like you may have a CCP failure, or looks like you are going to have a failure in this process steps. So this can predict a problem and prevent the problem from happening by alerting the end user to take corrective actions before the problem happens. So that's another area we are working on. And the last area, what we're trying to do, we do not build hardware, but we are working with hardware vendors, such as temperature sensors or humidity, moisture sensor, any other hardware vendors. Now, working with the vendors, we could also create predictive models from using those data and understand where the problem can happen. So if you're talking about the cold supply chain, let's say temperature. So if you know that you are monitoring temperature in the entire supply chain, and in the historically you have seen that this route or this time of the day or this point of this area which could have a different challenges with your temperature monitoring. So we could create those kind of reports in advance and make sure that all those predictive or all those suggested challenges can be addressed before the problem really occurs. So that's the third area we are working on by partnering with hardware vendors so that we could integrate their hardware data, their hardware into our software and create predictive models for alerting a problem before it happens.
Thank you. That's quite a comprehensive solution. So on to our next question. If you haven't voted in the poll, kindly just open the poll section. I've dropped a question over there. What do you think is the biggest challenge in adopting new food safety technologies? Just drop your vote over there so that we can announce the winning challenge. Give you a few minutes. If you haven't voted, please head over to the poll section and vote. What do you think is the biggest challenge in adopting new food safety technologies? So far, the challenge that is on the lead is resistance to change within the industry, apparently. Actually thought people would say high cost of implementation, but no one has voted for it. Resistance to change is at 60%, and integration issues with existing systems is at 20%. It's a tie with the lack of skilled personnel. Yeah, Anyone else who wants to vote before we move on? Okay, so we'll take it that resistance to change is the biggest obstacle to adoption. On to Edward. What do you think is the biggest challenge in adopting these technologies?
Yeah, I think when I look at it, I see four challenges, or you could say hurdles, and one is cost. That is part of your poll, but it's not mentioned.
Yeah.
But what I know is that let's say the hygiene managers or the quality managers, they have quite a hard job in food production. They will have a limited budget, and they will also have limited time available for cleaning, because the production must go on, and that's what brings in the money. So yeah, you could express it in many different ways, but I think the budget that is allocated to them and the time that makes what they can do, how they can contribute. And I think it also leads to let's say a lower uptake maybe of new detection methods, because they can be more expensive, and then you're not going to use them on a routine basis.
Yeah.
The other aspect, and that was, I think, second place in your poll, is regulatory. We discussed this a lot when we were preparing the proposal for the Catalyze project, is that, and that for a good reason, in food safety, there's a lot of regulation, which is quite strict, because we want to sell safe food to the customers, to the people. But this also means that it becomes a bit inflexible. So when there's a new technology and it is not approved, then it will take quite some time before it becomes approved. A lot of research needs to be done, data need to be collected, regulators need to be convinced. So we are convinced that regulatory is one of the reasons that the uptake of new innovations is slow. And then other challenges, I think, are focus within the company and the food safety culture. So it's and let's say, as a hygiene manager, it is also important what is your position within a company? How well are your remarks being appreciated? How well does the management listen to you? And there can be really differences in companies about let's say the status of a quality manager. And then also how important thing the company thinks it is to look at food safety and quality, and that influences how well they involve the staff, or how well they instruct the staff, or how much budget they set aside to make sure that the staff is really motivated to deliver. Those were my four topics.
Okay. Thank you. Prasant, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think I agree everything what Edward said. I have just want to supplement a few things to Edward's point. So when you talk about the cost, why cost is a significant factor in the food industry. So we have to take a step back and understand the industry a little bit better. So the food industry is dominated by, globally, I'm talking about globally, 80 to 90% are small to medium scale players. So when you have got 80 to 90% small medium scale player, in those organizations, quality managers are not always the decision maker. The decision makers are the owners of the company. And for owners of the company, because your profit margin is so low, any additional expenses to quality and food safety is always considered as a cost. And the margins are low, and the cost, if you are trying to spend more on this, the typical assumption, if I'm spending more on the quality, it's going to cost me more. So that's the mindset I see, that globally, even though quality manager wants to have a software, when they present to the management, hey, I would like to have this technology, the management said no. Number two, and that's where smart food started, the affordability. So if you look at the current marketplace, if you have a recall in the car, the very same day you'll get a call from the dealers. That means the VIN number you have in the car is traceable no matter who owns the car. So that means the technology is already available, but it's not affordable to the food supply chain. So if you can build an affordable food safety software management solution keeping the cost perspective in mind for the food supply chain, then you'll be able to overcome that cost elements. Number two, resistance to change. And this is very well said. And we have seen this. No matter which country we go, whenever we are trying to bring a new software solution, maybe the management is fully involved. They are fully bought in. Hey, we want to implement. But when you go to the shop floor, the people say, hey, I have to learn a new language. I have to learn how to press on. I don't know. I don't have a smartphone. I'm still using those what's a keyboard phone, and you are asking me to touch on the iPad. So that is what I see the biggest resistance to change. And what we're trying to do, if you can keep the same user experience, if you don't force them to learn a new language, but you adapt to their language, then the resistance can be slowly minimized. And the next most important factor, the driving factor. So who should drive this change? If we try to sell a software to a customer saying, hey, you know what? You will have higher return on investment, you will have more efficiency, more transparency. The customer say, but I don't need it. Today, I have a GFSS certificate. My customer don't want it. My regulatory body don't want it. So why should I go for a software? So that means the biggest challenge I see that the driving force behind the implementation of technology. And in my opinion, customer is one of the biggest driving force. If the customer say tomorrow, if Walmart say, I need this technology to be in place, the supplier will have no choice. If the regulatory body in each country say, hey, I have to have this in place, then there'll be no excuse to not implementing. And the last point I would like to add is the data security. I think people say my data in the cloud is not secure. People say my data is, if I'm putting my recipe in the cloud, what if my competitor get access to my data? But today's world, everything's in the cloud. Your social media profile, your government's your income tax returns, everything is on the cloud, and there are measures can be taken to protect the data and make the consumer believe that hey, the data can be stored securely without any privacy breach in the cloud. So these are the barriers what I see from our experience in the Smart Food Set, but I agree everything Edward said in his points.
If I may react, Catherine, if that's fine for you. Because you mentioned the traceability, and this is also for us a really important aspect. But we see some regulatory, let's say, initiatives that also drive traceability. Like in the US, the FDA is preparing a new law that forces companies at least to be traceable to the first supplier, and then that supplier needs to have a system that makes it traceable to their next supplier. But in Europe, we have several directives and regulations that are coming that deal with forced labor, that deal with due diligence, that deal with deforestation, that force companies to be aware of what happens in their entire supply chain. And this forces companies, so these regulatory initiatives forces companies to set up a system, and preferably it's digital, to have that traceability in place. And we see that maybe these initiatives start because of this regulation, but then of course it is very convenient to also apply it to the sourcing of ingredients, and then to apply it to food safety. So in that sense, there could be another driver depending on the country or the continent.
Thank you, Edward, for reminding us of that. Actually, it's the EUDR regulation. I think it's supposed to come into force around June of this year, if I'm not wrong, right? So even in the poll that we launched, asking people which food safety area should receive the most focus in 2025, apparently preventing food fraud and contamination was the second most voted, and the first challenge is enhancing real-time monitoring. Everyone wants to monitor their products real-time. Yes, Here is where the likes of IoT come in. Okay, so moving away from that, let's look at the policies. Edward, you just mentioned, is it Prasant or Edward was mentioned this, people worrying about putting their data in the cloud. Yeah? So what are some of the privacy issues or concerns and regulatory compliance issues that may impact the adoption of these new technologies?
Yeah, I think with, let's say, with the whole digital field, developments are going so fast that regulators cannot keep pace with the developments. And there are a number of risks that we see, but yeah, let's say regulators are always late because if, let's say, developments are there and then they have to react. But in this case, it is almost impossible. And I can see in Europe that European Commission, they have a number of initiatives to regulate, let's say, AI, privacy, all kinds of topics in this field with multiple regulations. So even it's for me difficult to keep up with the developments. Yeah, the risks that we see is that that there are negative side effects, and you could say one aspect is the use of smartphones and kids being on the phone all the time. That it becomes the main information, the main source of information for people. The short movies they see, the reels, and it can even influence elections. So there is a problem there. We have initiatives that at schools kids are not allowed to use their phone, so then maybe they spend more time with each other talking instead of looking at the phone. And another aspect is that where we also had trouble in the Netherlands is that algorithms can start to have their own life, and that they can cause, let's say, discrimination of certain groups of the population, because they apparently they come up in the algorithms, and then they become a bit more selective. So also in how it is executed, there are things that we really have to be aware of. And then a third aspect that I would like to mention, and I think it was correctly indicated by Prasanti when in the beginning, is that there's now a tendency to call everything AI. Because let's say in the world where we live, where you write proposals for funding, we know now AI is a hot topic, it's popular. So then people start to call everything AI, and that's not the case. And the result can be that expectations are not met in the new future, and then what they call is that there will be a new winter in AI. There will be less investments in it because in some cases it didn't work. And that is a bit the situation we had with blockchain when we, let's say 3-4 years ago, when we prepared a proposal for the Titan project. Blockchain was really popular, but now it's much less. But we see that it gets its place. So it is part of the total package in digital solutions. It has its own specific, and I think that is also important for us to be clear what is AI, what is machine learning, what are Internet of Things, what is blockchain, so that in that sense that we're clear what we are doing and what people can expect.
Thank you, Edward. Prasant, what's your perspective on that?
Well, again, to supplement what Edward said, I'll just touch upon the regulatory aspect. If you look at, we are human beings. No matter which part of the world we live in, no matter which country we live in, what makes me sick in Canada can make Edward sick in Netherlands, can make Catherine sick in the Kenya. Yeah. So when the problem statement is one, the same problem statement, why the solution statement is different? One of the questions we get asked, hey, how do I comply to US food safety regulation? How do I comply to European food safety regulation? How do I comply to Australia food safety regulation? So in my opinion, when we have the same common problem statement, the solution statement should be the same. So that means all these regulatory bodies should collaborate and create a harmonized food safety requirements. So I see that's one of the biggest challenge in regulatory perspective, right? Every country have their own additional. Of course, we can have a baseline food safety standard across the world, like GFSI, and the regulatory bodies should adopt to the one global benchmark standard. And of course, you may have your own additional requirements. Then you can supplement to the baseline. So because there is no global regulatory streamlined framework, we see that a lot of challenges from the regulatory perspective. That's the starting point. And number 2 point called the implementation. It's very good. We can have a very good regulation, but what if you don't implement it? So I have seen the same challenges across the world, that maybe my policy says or my regulation says I have to do this, but do I believe in that? Do I follow that in practice? Do I preach to my people that, hey, food safety comes first? Food safety is a non-negotiable requirement. So the implementation plays a biggest role in making sure that the regulatory perspective is fully implemented in place. So these are the 2 areas I see that collaboration across the regulatory framework, and then customers. In today's world, I think the customer is driving the food safety requirements. If you look at Instagram, Twitter, to Facebook, anybody don't like anything. Let's say they find something not good about a food, they find some food safety hazards, going and posting on the public domain. So those kind of easy access to social media platform where food safety incidents can be posted can create a huge pressure on the manufacturer in terms of complying to the food safety requirements. So consumers are driving the food safety needs through social media. At the same time, I think if you can have a harmonized regulatory framework across the globe, we'll be able to solve the global food safety problems.
Thank you, Prasant. Or to the audience, in case you have any questions, you can drop them in the Q&A section. And our panelists will get right into them. So, do you trust AI and automation to improve food safety and quality? Let's see what you had to say. Yeah, 62% of you somewhat trust it, but you say human oversight is still crucial. Then we have 40% saying yes, AI will enhance food safety. Some of us are not sure. AI needs more testing. Yeah, sure. So somewhat, but the human oversight is still crucial, crowns it. Okay, we've talked about harmonizing standards all the way from Europe to the US to Africa. Do you think maybe economic or infrastructural, cultural factors influence the adoption of these technologies? And what lessons can we learn from these global food safety leaders? Edward, maybe you can go first.
You want me to go first?
Yes.
Yeah. For me, that was the most difficult question. I'm really focused on what happens in Europe, and of course we look what happens in the US and Canada and Australia and New Zealand. And for some topics we look at Southeast Asia, and we get more and more connections with Africa. I think that we let's say we are educating staff and people to work more hygienic, and for sure there will be cultural differences between regions, countries, continents in this, and how well people are educated or applying them. And I think the same holds for economic factors, that I think there are quite some differences. When you talk about the number of large food processing companies, let's say the buying power of people, where they buy their food, if they buy food. So it's I think what I can contribute here is more the things that we already all know, I would say.
Yeah, Prasant, you work with people from all over the world. So maybe you can chip in on that. Do you think
Sure.
culture? Yeah.
Sure. Well, and again, I will look at the global landscape, right? If you look at a country where the cost of labor is high, they always try to look out for technology or ways to minimize the cost. Whereas the cost of labor is cheaper, if you go and preach them a technology where you have initial investment of so much, they'll always move away because labor is cheap. So the labor is a driving force in terms of technology penetration, because any technology you go for, there's always an upfront cost and then ongoing cost. When the upfront cost is much more higher than the labor cost, but basically you can get the same job done by having more resource than technology, people always prefer to go for additional resources. And this is what we have seen whenever we are trying to penetrate in those markets. They're very emerging market. They have the budget to have a food safety software, but when they do the cost benefit analysis, they say, hey, if I want this line check to be automated, I can add 5 more people instead of paying you 10 times more. So that is what I'm seeing a biggest driving factor when your country or your economy or the cost of labor is much more higher. North America, people always love to find a way, or Europe, hey, how do I minimize cost? Number 2 is cultural. And I was auditing in a country, in an underdeveloped developing country. We wanted to I went to audit them, and we were trying to export. They were trying to export to North America. So I went to the washroom, because usually what I do whenever I audit, I look at the washroom first, because if the washroom is clean and neat, that means that's everybody's following the factory will be much more better. So I looked at the washroom. I found that the hand wash sink everything is very dry in that area. So as if no one is using the washroom, no one using the hand wash basin. So I asked these people, hey, do you have a hand washing practice at home? When you go and eat your food, or after using washroom, do you wash your hand at home? They said, no, we don't have such concept, because we don't have access to water, easy water. So that's why we don't have a concept of handing my wash, or washing our hands after using the washroom. So it's the cultural. If you force them to come and they wash their hand after using the washroom in the food factory, they will do only when they are being monitored. But when they are not being monitored, they will try to skip, because it's a cultural behavior. So culture plays a very important role in terms of food safety also. Thanks to COVID, everybody learned how to wash their hands. But this incident I was talking about before COVID time, where things were not as serious, or the importance of hand washing was not as serious as post-COVID. So there are 2 factors from a cultural standpoint. Also, there's some countries, there's some religious behavior. For example, wearing certain religious bands or some kind of symbols is culturally accepted, and where they may have a food safety impact, but you cannot force them to take those things out of them during the food manufacturing, because this could be insulting or offensive to the religions. So it does play an important role, culture and religion, when complying to food safety compliances. And what was the next point, Catherine, you wanted to ask me?
Okay, actually, that was the only thing I had. Oh, what lessons can we learn from the global leaders in food safety innovation?
So what lessons you can learn? Can you repeat the questions, please?
The lessons we can learn from global leaders in food safety innovation.
Well, again, if you look at the future of food safety, and I can tell you that technology is the way to move forward. The sooner we adapt, the better we are in place. The later we adapt, the what you call will become backbencher. So there's no way technology can be separated out of the human life. That's the future, and food safety must adapt to the technology. And of course there are barriers, but in my opinion, 5 to 10 years down the line, I foresee, or 20 years down the line, I foresee every food company is using digital platform to collect the data, to analyze the data, and demonstrate transparency and traceability in their food supply chain.
Great. It's great that you've mentioned the next few years, because the next question I'm going to ask you is, which kind of innovations do you foresee that we should keep an eye on for the next 5 to 10 years? Which innovation should we keep an eye on?
Well, of course, IoT. IoT will be the biggest innovation. I can foresee that the way the smartphone is evolving, the handheld devices will be one of the biggest innovation to capture data. And second things will be our what they call the sensors, smart sensors. We always look at traditional way of analyzing any contaminations, but I think with smart sensors, we'll be able to identify the hazards in the supply chain much more sooner. And AI is going to prevail. Last 1 year, the way AI has been moving very fast in terms of what they call every aspect of life. I think food safety will not be left behind. We'll be using a lot of AI tools in terms of what they call identifying or preventing food safety problems. And I see that the sooner we all adapt to this technology, the better we'll be in place.
Wow, thank you. Handheld devices really coming up. I think an innovation that really fascinated me last year was the allergy amulet. It's yet to fully launch, but I was just so fascinated that I can just wear a device, put it in my necklace, and then when I go to a restaurant, I test my food. Within minutes, I know whether it has allergens. Technology. Wow. Edward, do you have any addition to that?
Yes, I have. Yes, I was triggered by the remark of Prasanti about companies having to look at the costs. When I was working for Arla Foods in Denmark, with the team, once we visit the factory and they make plastic trays for retail, so that, for instance, chicken fillet or meat can be put on top of them and sold in the supermarket. And this is a very competitive area. So, and because the taxes are high and the salaries are high in Denmark, they really had to be efficient. So they were developing all kinds of technological solutions to be more efficient and to have less people working in the factory. And they told us that at a certain moment they acquired or they purchased another company in the UK. And then the situation was that one person in Denmark would be responsible for 2 machines that were producing those plastic trays, while in the UK there were 2 people with 1 machine. So that's a clear difference, and they developed it by their focus on technology. And I think that the platforms as Prasanti has developed, and also the EMIS platform from Q Assurance in the Netherlands, that they should be able to make life easier for the people in those companies. And the Q Assurance platform, they really focus on making life easier around audits, so that the advantage becomes clear, and let's say what you gain in time and in efficiency when you use those tools, that they will be adopted. That's one aspect. When addressing the question about lessons learned from global leaders, there are 2 things that I think are really important that stand out because they are really visible. Is that we need to give food safety the focus and attention that it needs, because when you don't, you can have issues and you don't want to have them. And the second one, in case of a recall, and it can happen to anyone, how well you manage it, but of course it may happen, but then you have to have a plan ready and you have to be open and transparent. Of course, we see now more recalls, and companies are open about them. They say, well, this batch of products can be unsafe, so we take it back. But what is not, let's say, something to recommend is to only react when it happens, because then you have panic meetings, and you doubt analysis, or you ask for reanalyzing samples. And these are the 2 lessons for me that I thought are really important. And when looking at the future technologies, One aspect I want to mention is that I think it's really important to have a good environmental monitoring program. Companies can get support here, but it's important to take samples at the right places. And when you don't find anything, that's fine, but then you have to look for other places. You have to be improving all the time. And I think that is key, essential for your hygiene practice. And then for the technologies, I largely agree with Prasanti. I think that there's a lot happening in the digital area. What we see is a lot of combinations between detection methods and digital technologies. But yeah, for me, let's say the mild processing technologies, and DRAS is decontamination, but they use less energy and it will be as hygienic. Wood air with green technology, more sustainable. The keep it sensor could be helpful. There are other sensors. I think there are a lot of possibilities, but then we have to fix the Internet of Things aspect better for the future, and also the coatings that can be applied on the fresh fruits and vegetables. So I think it will be a really exciting field. There will be really a lot happening in the coming 5 years in this field. Yeah.
Thank you, Edward. You've mentioned aspects of food waste. You've mentioned aspects of sustainability. So I'm really going to ask that question because we've already seen how these technologies can help us make our food systems more sustainable and even reduce food waste through the power of predictive analytics and the likes. So to the audience, if you have any questions, kindly go over to the Q&A section, drop your questions over there as I'm asking our last question. So on to Prasant.
Yes. If you can allow me to also present our solutions to the audience.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So should we wait for the questions or should I present my
okay.
solutions?
The last question, we just want you to give one piece of advice to food safety professionals preparing for the future. Yeah.
That's for me?
If you could give food safety professionals one piece of advice, what would it be? Oh, there are also some people who are looking to purchase some of these softwares. Which kind of advice would you give them?
Okay. So first question is called, what's the advice for the food safety professionals?
Yes, who are looking towards the future.
If you look at the regulatory changes, technological enhancements, you got to stay up to date with the latest happenings in the marketplace. So currently, if you are not knowing what's happening in the marketplace in terms of the emerging rules, emerging regulation, technologies, innovations, and you will be left behind. So staying up to date with the latest happenings will definitely enhance to be a better food safety professional. And at the same time, what I have seen in my past experience, that knowing what is just right. So currently, I can tell you that we sometimes should do things without knowing where to stop, just because we think the auditor is going to give us a non-compliance if we don't do this. So I would suggest understand the basics and know what is just right to meet the food safety compliances and stay up to date with the latest emerging technology or happenings in the world.
Thank you. Stay up to date. You have to be aware of what's happening in the world. Okay, so there's a question that has been posed here before Edward now gives us this piece of advice. How can food businesses move from a checklist mentality solely for demonstrating regulatory conformance to a proactive compliance approach that prevents issues before they arise? Can I repeat the question?
Yeah, so I think it links to what I mentioned about the environmental monitoring program. So I think when you want to be proactive, you are not only analyzing the product or the let's say the final product or the packaging maybe, but you will make a plan where you think about the risks that could occur beforehand. What are the hazards that can take place? And then you set up a good program to measure. So for me, that is the foundation for what needs to happen in the production location. And yeah, it is really important to be aware of regulatory changes, and I can also say it's really important to be aware of the new, let's say, technologies or possibilities there are. But that is quite difficult, especially for smaller companies. It's difficult to spend time on those. So another recommendation would be to become member of an association. Like for instance, we have EHEDGE. So then you will meet more hygiene managers, so you can exchange thoughts with them. And yeah, for me, this is really a pain point as a company, which partner to choose for, let's say, for your traceability efforts, because there are probably many smaller IT companies out there that offer their services, and how to judge which one is the best one. That I think that's only possible for larger food companies to find out. So yeah, I think you just have to follow a clever approach and not be afraid to work together with people, because some questions are, that you could say, pre-competitive. So my advice to react on the question is, one is to have a very good, let's say, environmental monitoring program as the basis for your further work. My recommendation would also be to digitalize your let's say the purchasing of ingredients, the testing of ingredients, but also to prepare for audits. I think that's what Prasanti also mentions, and to create connections with organizations, companies in the same situation, so that you can move quicker. On your own, it is almost impossible as a smaller company to tackle this.
Thank you, Edward. Thank you, Edward. Prasant, do you want to also take on that question?
Sure. I will basically add to what Edward said. And there was a questions about how to identify what's the right solution for me. So when you
Actually,
are evaluating,
sorry, let me just cut you off. The person was asking, how can food businesses move from a checklist mentality solely for demonstrating regulatory conformance to a proactive compliance approach that prevents issues before they arise?
so again, it comes down to food safety culture. So if your organization don't have a food safety culture, if your organization don't believe in complying to food safety requirements, then they will follow a checklist mindset, because I have to fill a checklist. So once you have a food safety culture, every member of the team will understand why they do what they do, and what are the importance of what they do. So once you understand, for example, hand washing, that's a simple example. Why do I wash my hand? Unless I understand why I wash my hands and how important this to food safety, I will always I will not follow the hand washing practices. So the checklist mindset is just basically you are demonstrating compliances. But if once you understand why you do what you do, I think it all comes down to the food safety culture, and does the organization set the right food safety culture?
That's very true. It all starts in the mind. From the time you arrive at the company, from the managers all the way down to the subordinate staff, what you are taught, why are you doing what you're doing? Is it just for the regulatory bodies to come and give you the 100% compliance rate, or you're doing this because you know your family member out there may consume this product that you're making? So it all starts with us. It all starts in the mind, that whatever you are doing, it may end up on your plate. The world is just a small globe. If there is a food safety incident in America, most likely it will also happen in Africa. Thank you, Prasant. Thank you, Edward. Maybe perhaps you can give us a short demo of your platform before we close. If you have any other questions, you can drop it in the Q&A section. We are about to wind up.
So thank you, Catherine, for the opportunity. So again, Edward was mentioning about your environmental monitoring program. So how do you make sure you have a robust environmental monitoring program? How do you make sure your sampling plan is happening properly, and your analysis, trends, and heat map? Guess what? We built a solution called Smart EMP, where you will be able to come and look at the analytics. What are the sampling counts? How many completed? What's pending? What is past due? What is the compliance rate for each of those identified bacteria in your environmental monitoring program? How is the sampling count going? How is my heat zone, where I can see the potential harbor place in my factory? What is the non-compliance by percentage? What is the non-compliance by stage? As you can see, stage 1, stage is first positive, second positive, third positive. If you're getting second and third positive, that means your corrective actions are not effective. So how can you see the non-compliance status? So we built a comprehensive solution for your environmental monitoring program where you could see each and every statistics you must need to know so that you are taking preventive actions. So this is something I was talking about, the EMP module. It's one of our module. We have got 18 plus modules. So that's why you can see as a quality manager, once you log into our platform, you could see all these modules you have subscribed to. And this is my compliance as a quality manager or food safety manager or anybody in the food safety team. What is my compliance percentage? That means how many tasks I'm supposed to do, how many are pending, how many are completed. If you want to have a real snippet across all your modules, you can come here and find out, hey, 23.67%. So that says I'm not doing a good job. I need to keep up with my pending actions so that I am not left behind with my compliance score. You could see all my scheduled tasks for pending, all my scheduled tasks for today, and you'll be able to see this kind of statistical analysis of your overall food safety compliance. Talking about audit ready, I know Edward mentioned about audit ready. We have a document audit management module where you could go and see, hey, what is my audit readiness? It's only 20%. That means I still have pending tasks across across the food safety program where I'm not audit ready. So you'll be able to see this kind of audit readiness. Anything with a soft floor line checks. Let's say you have your line checklist called CCP check, quality checks, things like that. You can see, hey, if I want to know what is my compliance percentage for my schedules. Let's say I've got 1,000 scheduled activities, and I want to know how much percentage I'm complying, because not necessarily all the tasks are done by me, because there's a team behind doing all the tasks. So you could come and see my compliance percentage. So you'll be able to go and look at what are the actions happening. And if you talk about what you call my training module, what is my skill matrix across my organization? What is my future trainings in place? Currently, training is one of the biggest challenge in making sure that your employees are trained. We have our training model which can give you a skill matrix which is automated for your training compliances. So we have a comprehensive solutions, and companies who are looking to become GFSI certified, we have built our document management systems where you could go and build in any kind of scheme, or whether it's SQF, BRC, or FSSE. You could build the schemes inside, or IFS. So you can go inside a particular clause, and we have built the GFSI, Global Food Safety Standards, into our software so that you could look at the requirements from the GFSI, look at all the program policy for that particular part, and look at all the records, evidence. So we could conduct an entire audit on all this platform, only on this platform, without looking for any binders, and help you to stay audit ready. So that's a comprehensive solutions we are trying to build on the Smart Food Safe brand, which is very affordable, very modular, customizable, and you can very user friendly, so that you don't have to learn a new language, and more importantly, it's future ready. So whatever technology you are trying to integrate, IoT, blockchain, AI, we are integration ready for the future, so that we have been ready for the future challenges when it comes to food safety management.
Thank you. So Anna Margaret is asking, how do I get the software? I'm interested to be an ambassador for this. How can I go about it?
So please contact us. My email I can post here. Email me or contact us on our website, and we'll be happy to walk you through what we do, and collaborate with you to become our ambassador.
Thank you. Amazing, amazing. Are there any more questions? There are no more questions. Yes. So from our poll results, most organizations are looking, yes, they're looking for these softwares. They're looking to adopt them. Some already have them. Let me just take a look. Yes, 55% voted yes, we're actively exploring options. 11% voted not yet, but it's on our radar. 11% no, we currently have a solution. And then 22% no, it's not a priority for us at this moment. Yes, so if you're actively exploring options, if Smart Food Safe is an option for you, you can talk to Prasant about it. It's been an amazing session. Yeah, maybe if you have some takeaway, something you've learned from the webinar, you can drop it in the chat before we close. And then I'll ask Edward and Prasant to give us some parting shots. Edward, any parting shot?
Yeah, I think we discussed a lot. It was really a pleasure to be attending this this session, this discussion. I think for me, the most exciting part is to follow the field, to try to find new developments, to support SME startups where possible. And as you could see in the PowerPoint, I showed that there are quite some initiatives that we have identified. And now I've also met Prasanti, so maybe we can also try to support him. Yeah, and I think it will the benefit will be that we let's say bring new good solutions to the field to make the food more safe and the supply chain more safe, but also contribute to a more sustainable society, because that's also what we try to do.
Thank you, Edward. Prasant, any parting shots?
Well, again, the vision of Smart Food Safe as an organization is how to create a sustainable food supply chain. And if you look at the food safety risk and how much it costs in terms of food waste, if you can reduce all those food safety incidents, we can definitely provide a better sustainable food supply chain. And the vision of Smart Food Safe, how to make food safety technology reachable to every player in the whole supply chain, no matter how small they are or how big they are. So that's the thought behind it, behind Smart Food Safe. And the final thought of technology is the only way to help us to get better food safety management. And the sooner we adopt, the better we'll be placed in the food safety program management.
Thank you, Prasant. It's amazing for you people to join this webinar. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm grateful for the amazing session we've had. As we've seen, the future of food safety and quality is in tech. Yes, a combination of tech and even human intervention, from IoT to machine learning. Yes, now to real-time monitoring, and then a shift in our mindset, because we've noticed that is the greatest hindrance to adoption. So even as we go out there, let us remember that food safety is everyone's business. Have a lovely evening, lovely morning, and see you in the next one. Thank you, Prasant. Thank you, Edward.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Edward.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine, for an amazing webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.